مساء حولين داف نون على فم مراد إلى زان ما لا رف سفرات لعباية رف سفرات سيد عباية حزي مور هاي تورا من البراند أتم رعبا. Have you ever seen the rabbis who came from Eretz Israel? Amar Rabbi Avira Shemani, and he said, "My name is Rabbi Avira." فأمر and he said, "معصية بقى فناي ربي ما حدش نمسد بعبي بيت هكوسر من ساد أحد." One time, they brought a animal to Rabbi Danasi, and they had a needle that was stuck in one side of the reticulum. وتريفا in Rabbi said it was taref. شنخها باي Rabbi to come to him. Lo ata the Gabi Beningo. Ata who the Gabi went to Rabbi have a car gira and he was standing on the roof of the house. Amar nehut more beneti. He says, "Would you, Rabbi Vera, want to come down to the roof to talk to me here?" Lo no, we didn't go down. So they go to the Gabi went up to the roof. Amar le emali gufada of the hechia. He's like, "Please tell me the exact story." Amar le maftir k'nitata le alam Rabbi Abba. He's like, "I am the one who attends the speeches of Rabbi Abba of the great Rabbi, sorry, and I help bring in and let out students like the umpire there. And the rabbi is sitting there. And there was a needle stuck one side of the walls inside the reticulum. Rabbi turned it inside out to see the outside skin. And found a piece of blood on it. Utefa. And he said right away it's taref. He says, because why? If there's no wound from the outside, why is there blood? Must be, it went through. How have you made me come for nothing? He's like, there was blood in it, and obviously there's no hidush. If it's a puncture from the outside, it's taref, and if you found the blood, it's exactly what the case is. There's no hidush. Next, نفهم لك if an animal fell from the roof is taref. أما ربنا أنيح بهما معلا وبمسألة مطر. Someone left an animal on the roof and all of a sudden he found it on the ground. إن حاشين مشون نرسكيه and you don't have to worry that maybe it fell and had a concussion because maybe it jumped purposely carefully. Because if it gauges it's correct, if it gauges that it can land safely, it'll do it. So you don't have to suspect that it fell by mistake. Hahu gadia da havila da rabina rabina had a goat. Tahaza hushlam be'im. He was standing on a roof and it saw some barley through the skylight. Da gar nafal me'igul ara. It jumped through the skylight to get to the roof, from the roof to get to the floor, to get to the barley. Atlik min rabashim rabashi amaleh hada maravuna mahniach b'malamalo b'mas. Al-matayin arshim mishum berizuki evarim. He says, we know that you're not supposed to suspect if it did it on purpose. Mishum de'idle midlisach, because it must have something that it would have grasped slowly to go down. But over here, there's nothing to grasp. Maybe we say that it should not be a problem because the animal was able to gauge itself whether or not it was able to make it safely. Over here, he did jump. So what do we do? Do we assume that he made a mistake or not? He says to him, no. We assume that he gauged it, and over here, if he gauged it, must be there's no reason to believe that he's taraf. There was a like a sheep that Haviva had that the back legs were dragging. Amar Rebbe, he says, "Hi Shigrona Nakte, this has been a cramp. It's not taref. Not kita brevina. Didn't mahuta shidran sake. Why would you assume that? Maybe the spinal cord was cut and it's taref. But the ashku karabina, and they found that it ended up having a severed spinal cord. But it's still a chazak remember there's kasher. Shigrona shkiach huta shkiach because a cramp is more common than a cut spinal cord. So generally, you can assume that the cramp is there, and you don't have to assume that this cut spinal cord. Amar Ravuna. If there's rams that are headbutting each other, you don't have to assume that they had a concussion. Even though they're continually hurting each other, we can assume that maybe they had a fever, but they're not injured. If they fall to the ground after the hitting, then you can assume it. Then you have to be worried that maybe they're injured. There's a certain rams that thieves stole and threw over the wall. You know, you don't have to worry they got the concussion. My time, why? Because when they threw them carefully. So the rams should run ahead of them safely. I didn't know, but if they returned the animals, but I shouldn't have to worry maybe they got hurt. Because when they throw them back over, maybe they're not as careful. That's only when they're returning out of fear. Teshuvah, but if they return them out of Teshuvah, you can assume Teshuvah Ma'atahu, they did correct Teshuvah and they returned it carefully and safely, and therefore they weren't injured. So, يعني either returning it because it's cops there, or they're returning it because they returned it overnight. That would be the difference. Amar ibn Marav. He karo shaba chala kalapes navav. Someone hit the animal on its head with a stick, and the stick went toward the tail. Al navav chala kalamarsha, or vice versa. Kineket kol hashidra kula. Even if the stick hit along the entire length of the spine, and hashim mishum gave it. We have to worry about concussion. But the stick hit a certain spot in the middle of the back, which means that the force of the blow was limited to part of the back. You're worried about the concussion. Now, concussion does not only mean the head, it means anywhere in the body, like a ruining of a limb or organ. The ipe kitre hashina, but if there's knobs on it, then even if it went along the whole length of the animal, we're still worried because it's stronger. The mahavasake hashina, but if you hit the animal with a cleaving motion, which means he hit it along the width of the back versus the length, well, again, we have to worry about it because it's a more concentrated area. Amar Nachman, Bet Harehim Imbo Mishum Rizuke Varim. The birth canal does not get a concussion of limbs if the while being born, the animal does not cause that type of damage. Amar Rabbi Rahman Tanim Zaleh proof. Tinok ben Yom Echad, a 1 day old baby, Metameh Beziva can become tameh if he has zav fluid. If you want to say that maybe he has trauma from going out of the birth canal, Ikre kan maybe set up with so you can say over here that maybe it came from the flesh and not from the trauma. Meaning, you can assume maybe it happened because of the trauma. Now being illness and not tuma. So the fact that we say tameh must be we're not worried about that. The Gemara says, "Hachman Sinan, who says maybe it's that tuma? Maybe back he's talking about a C-section baby. There is no trauma. Tashma is being proof. I Hashem Yom Tov, Shahatim Yom Tov Yom Tov, a calf was born on Yom Tov can be slaughtered on Yom Tov. Day of birth, no trauma. Zachanami going just a maybe it's referring to the C-section. Tashma bring another proof. Bishavin shenolad hu umod shesed min ha-mukhan. We have a halacha from Masechet Betzah. If you're worried about an animal that's a bachor, you want to eat it on Yom Tov. If it's born and you see that it has a mum when it's born, it's considered prepared and you can slaughter it and eat it on Yom Tov. So we see, able to be eaten the same day. If you want to say, oh, but that's all C-section, you can't say that. Derech dofen be kadosh. It won't be a kadosh as a bachor. It has to be natural. So, proof. When Nachman, the Gemara says, that's some of the case where it planted its hooves in the ground right away when it was born. Therefore, it did not have severe trauma. But Rav Nachman would say that if it was a regular animal that does not come out so easily and has trauma, maybe that would be a problem. Rahman said that when the butcher hits an animal before slaughtering it, it does not cause a concussion. There's a certain ox that was hit in the slaughterhouse, and you heard a groan, and he slaughtered it. He took the best meat from it, showing that it's kasher. I know that. The animal, when it's being hit, it digs its hoof into the ground until it reaches the ground and therefore protects itself. If an animal stood that they're falling down, you don't have to wait 24 hours to see that it's a stable animal. You can eat it right away. But if it definitely needs to check the organs inside, but if it walked normally, you don't have to have an extensive examination. Either way, you need extensive examination to make sure they don't take far from the fall. Even if it stuck out its leg to try to stand up, even if it did not stand up, it's still okay. If it raised up its back leg to walk, even if it did not actually walk, also, it's as if it walked. But his damar, even if it tried to stand up without moving its leg, it still could. If it fell down without knowing that it was falling, it was an accident. And stood up without walking, you still have to examine. You don't have to wait 24 hours. If you walk, you don't need an examination. The animal that fell, you need to check it. It fell by accident. You need to check by the location of the stomachs or by the intestines. So you have to check the entire trunk of the body. What about the simanim, the pipes? You have to check it there. Amalis Malin Kashin hands, and then no, it's very tough in regard to folds, and therefore you don't have to worry about it. Okay. Amar Bidam Shmuel. Of Shinehbat Al Hamayim. If a bird hit hard against the uh, water surface, Kevin Shishat Milom Kotodia, as long as it swam the length of its body, it's okay. That's only refers to upstream, because that shows that it's doing it by itself. But if it's downstream, it doesn't prove anything because it's the stream is carrying it, the current. You may have to kind of let it out. If it's stagnant, if it's like a pond that does not move, then either way is okay. If there's chips of wood all around and the bird is passing them, even if it's going downstream, hakadme must be that it has its strength. Glima matih hashinan. If the bird fell into a sheet that was stretched across pegs, so that caused like a taut thing a location, that's considered a, a significance for concern. But if it wasn't stretched taut, then we're not worried. Of mufaf lo hashinan, if it was folded, we're not worried about it. Islam ummekarve kitre hashinan, if the bird flew into a net and the knots were made close together, we're worried that maybe it had a concussion against the tight knots. Lo mekarve lo hashinan, but if it's not close knots, then we're not worried about it. Okay. Kitina David, Kitina Hashin, and the bird fell on the flags as made the bundles are worried about a concussion because it's tight and stiff. The Hagisa was Hagisa Hashin, but if it hit on either side of the thing, not the right impact, we're not worried. Isuraita Hashin, but it fell on bundle of reed, we are worried. Kitina the Daika Hashin, but it fell into flax that was beaten and combed, which makes it soft, they're not worried. Daika Hashin, but if it was pounded and not combed, we are worried because it's still tough. David Bizri made in the bundles. Came in the Ika be Kitre Hashinan. Once there's knots, we're worried. Dakta Hashinan. If onto um the parts of the non-fiber parts of the stalk that are broken, then we are worried. Did the Telo Hashinan, but it fell into the other parts, the softer parts, the other type of waste, it's soft, it's not a problem. Nabra Hashinan, it fell onto the pieces of the inner part of the palm tree that you make for rope. That's soft. We're not worried. Sorry, it's hard. We are worried. Tim Hatata Hashinan, but if onto the strands, that's soft. Not worried. Kitman and Hashinan, sifted ash, but not what we are worried. Learn Hashinan, but if it wasn't sifted, it's all a soft ash, then we are not worried. Okay. Hol hadak lo hashina. The bird fell in the soft, fine sand. We are worried. We're not worried. Hol hagat hashinan. Coarse sand. We are worried. Avak drachim hashinan. Dust. Road dust. We are worried. Tivin avid bezga hashinan. Straw that was made into a bale. We are worried. Lo avid bezga hashinan. If it wasn't made into a bale, it's soft. Not worried. Haytiv achomenayda hashinan. Wheat or any type of wheat, barley like grain. We're not. We are worried. Sarif achomenayda hashinan. Sorry, barley in any type. We are not worried. Kol minei ketniyot nivashim mishum risukei abrim. All types of legumes do not cause concussion. Lebam min harubia except for fenugreek, which is hard. Himse en borishum risukebrim. Peas, no worry about concussion. Chickpeas, which are not soft and round. They're different sizes and not uniformly round. We are worried. The basic rule of the matter is anything that slips and moves, there is no danger because it moves with the person or the animal rather. If it's not moving when pressed, you do have to worry about it because then it will cause more pressure on the actual item. The book regarding glue. The bird was caught on a glue board and flew onto it. Ravashi Shara Nina Asar, it's machloket, whether it's mutar asur. If the wing, one wing was attached to the trap, everybody agrees with mutar because when it flaps the wing, it'll soften it. Key plea, where's the machloket betega where both wings were glued? Mandas malach hechinegum. Rabban Meir says asur because he said, how will it lift itself if it can't fly? Both wings. And Ramesh says no, it's mutar because it's possible to lift itself upon impact with the bottom of the wing. Version, this version is that both wings are make it asur. Keep the mahog one wing. Man the Shara Malach, Hagufar, Mash is mutar because he's able to fly with one wing. Man the Asad, the Ramima was the sword, came in the head Lamas, the Parah, I know since he can't fly with one, he can't fly with the other. The Akhtada Al is betrayed by Asib Hajj with both wings are asur, one wing it is mutar.